Okay, so this is what I was leading up to here. This is, I'm going to share my screen with you. Information on the Rosetta Project. Okay, so the show that I was watching was talking about things that will survive, things that will last, that will thrive. Okay, and they mentioned something called the Rosetta Project. So I'm just going to read little tidbits of it. And, think of our course topic, which is language, right? Kind of think of the sources that we've been reading, even the TED Talk in the beginning, and just, I don't know, just kind of let all that marinate in your brain here. Okay. So the Rosetta Disk is the physical companion of the Rosetta Digital Language Archive and a prototype of one facet of the Long Now Foundation's 10,000 year library. Okay? 10,000 year library. The Rosetta Disk is intended to be a durable archive of human languages as well as an aesthetic object. Okay, it looks pretty too. That suggests a journey of the imagination across culture and history. We have attempted to create a unique physical artifact which evokes the great diversity of human experience, as well as the incredible variety of symbolic systems we have constructed to understand and communicate that experience. So what it is, it's literally a disc, okay? And you'll see some pictures of kind of what this disc looks like. It basically, the disc surface, which it's showing right there, is meant to be a guide of whatever the contents are on this thing. And it's etched with an image of the earth, and then a message written in 8 major world languages that says, "Languages of the world. This is an archive of over 1,500 human languages assembled in the year 2008 CE. Magnify 1,000 times, okay? Kind of try to let your brain process that. Magnify it 1,000 times to find 13,000 pages of language documentation. Okay? 1,000 times, 1,300 pages of language documentation. Okay? This is where it gets kind of crazy. So obviously you need something that's going to magnify this disc, right? So on the reverse side of the globe, the graphic there, are 13,000 micro-etched pages of language. Okay. What's micro-etched, you ask? Okay, well, each page is 0.019 inches or half a millimeter across. Okay, so we're not talking about the width, like, how thin a paper is. We're not talking about this. We're talking about this. Okay, so again, try to let your brain format that. Okay, so half a millimeter across. This is about equal to the width of 5 human hairs. If you have really long hair, just kind of pull that out and look at that. 5 human hairs. I don't have long hair. I'd have to pull it out to look at it. And can be read with a 650 times microscope. Individual pages are clearly visible with 100 time magnification. Okay. Wow, right? It's crazy, but this is something that is supposed to last, okay? Yes, and one of your classmates piped in, and this is the background to it. It's named after the Rosetta Stone, which actually kind of helped with hieroglyphics and all of that, okay? So that's where the Rosetta part of it links in. But I just thought it was really cool. Because it's a way to show kind of the diversity of our languages right now. Now, it doesn't include every single language, because believe it or not, there are languages that have no written record. There are languages that are spoken now that are spoken only. There's no visual representation of the language. Okay, so kind of think of that too. What happens to that language when nobody speaks it anymore? It's lost, right? Which is extraordinarily sad to think of. We are a world where most of our languages started out in just oral traditions, right? Things were passed down to subsequent generations just by the stories that we told and things like that. So there's been quite a few languages that have unfortunately been lost, or we only have a fraction of the language. We don't have all of it, but we're able to get bits and pieces of it. Let me show you. I'm trying to remember now. All of a sudden, I can't remember what. Oh, right here. I was looking for the images. So this is the face. Okay, remember what we were talking about where we've got where it was saying, hey, on this thing you're going to find 13,000 pages. So that's the face of it. Okay. This is kind of cool when you look at it. This is it. It's dissembled right now. So these are all the different pieces that kind of make together. And then there's a long blog backup, or a story about a backup, and of course the images aren't going to load up here, which is pretty interesting. But here's what's super cool. All right. So this is what 13,500 pages that are micro etched into nickel. This is what it looks like. All right. So I thought it gave us the dimension of the circle, but it didn't. So if you zoom in, you can see all of these. These are like pages right here, right? And then as you zoom in a little bit more, you get the closer view. Okay, it's just kind of mind-boggling that we're at that point that we can micro etch language onto pages that are with the cross of 5 hairs. It's just kind of mind-boggling. So, maybe that didn't interest you at all. Maybe you thought that was one of the most boring things that I've ever told you guys, but I just thought it was an interesting way to show us how important language is. Language is so important that we are trying to make sure that should something really, really bad happen, that the languages that we speak somehow survive. Even if we don't, we want the languages to survive. Okay? So deep thoughts to start your afternoon off with, okay? All right, so yeah, if you're super interested and you want to look this up later, which you probably don't, but it's rosettaproject.org. That's where all of this came from. So the interesting things that you hear when you're just listening to television, right? Okay, let me go like this. Oops, I'm going to type it in the chat box. Make sure that let's see here, Rosetta Project. Make sure I type the right thing. Okay. All right, so rosettaproject.org. It's a cool website too. You can click around. There's more pictures. There's different blog posts. It talks about the people who are working on it, why they decided to do it in the first place. So yeah. Who knows? Maybe it might come in handy as you guys are working on your essays. I don't know. Maybe it's a source you could use. So just something interesting. Okay. So here's what I would like to do. Over the past couple of class sessions, we've talked about MLA formatting, APA formatting. Tried to scratch the surface so you guys have a general understanding of what it is you need to do. So far we've focused on the formatting, right? The formatting of your paper, the formatting of your references page or works cited page. Today, I want us to really focus on in-text citations. Okay, so you guys know that at the end of your essays, there has to be a page, a sources page, that lists all of the sources that are used within your paper. Okay, for MLA, it's works cited. For APA, it's called references. If you use a source in your paper, it has to be identified in two ways. One, on the sources page, okay? And then two, within the document itself. So if you quote, if you paraphrase, if you summarize anything from another source, you have to provide an in-text citation for it, okay? So if you have a source listed on your works cited page, if I see a source there, I am going to immediately look in your paper to see if you have an in-text citation, okay? If something is listed on your works cited page, there better be a reference to it in your paper. If you don't use it in your paper, take it off your works cited page, okay? So we're going to look at the whys and hows of in-text citation. We've just briefly talked about it. So I need you guys, I need to check in with you guys again to find out, because I think a couple of you were wanting to ask, like, your program people that you know, your other teachers that are program specific, if your papers needed to be an MLA or APA. So please take to the chat box and tell me if anybody plans to do APA formatting anytime in our class together. Please let me know. Do you, maybe not this current paper, but maybe like your persuasive essay paper, do you plan to use APA at all? Sorry, I needed a drink. Okay. All right, so from what I'm seeing then, we can focus on MLA. We will do that so that way we don't get confused with MLA and APA. We will just like strict focus for MLA. Give me a second though. A couple of you popped in while we were talking about the Rosetta disc here. Make sure I get everybody. I think that's right. Oh, okay. I wrote one of you twice and I was trying to figure out why I had an extra person. Okay. All right. So I'm going to take us into Blackboard then. Let me show you some more resources that I have put in Blackboard for you. So let me get rid of my face. Let's go to Blackboard. All right. As always, it opens up to the announcements page. You are more than welcome to click along with me. I am going to take us to the MLA APA help tab that I have for you guys. So let's click on that and open it up. Okay, so, we've gone over all this stuff. We've gone over our citation generators, but now we want to focus on the in-text citations. Now, I have resources for both MLA 8 and APA 7. So if at any time you may change your mind or you're told differently and that you need to use APA, we do have these resources here. But for today, since the general consensus seems to be that everybody's going to use MLA, we are just going to like laser focus on it, okay? So I'd like to show you an in-depth video here. It's only about 3 minutes long, but it's an in-depth video on what you're supposed to do with in-text citations when you're writing your essays, okay? So let me click this up. Feel free to take notes if you want to. We are going to be doing an in-class activity after we watch this video, so make sure you understand what's expected of you in regards to in-text citations, okay? And if you have any questions, we will definitely go through them after this video. So let's try a couple of seconds, make sure we can all hear and see.
This video will cover an introduction to the 8th edition of MLA citation style.
Okay, everybody see, everybody hear okay? Let me know if anybody has any problems. Okay, I'm getting some thumbs ups and some goods. Good. So let's full screen it. I'm going to turn the closed captioning on, though we know that sometimes closed captioning has a mind of its own. So, all right, so in-text citation for the 8th edition of MLA. Here we go.
We will focus on in-text citations. In-text citations are found in the body of your paper. Anytime you include information that is not your own, you need to include an in-text citation. MLA in-text citations include the author's last name and the page number if available. There are 2 ways to use in-text citations. The first way is to put the citation at the end of the sentence where the whole citation is in parentheses. In this case, you'll write a statement that includes information from a source, meaning information that is not your own. Then you include your in-text citation. This is in open parentheses, the author's last name and the page number. Close the parentheses, then put a period to end the sentence. Note that the period is after the citation, so the citation is considered to be part of your sentence. If the source you are using does not have a page number, such as a website or video, then you do not need to include a page number. The second way to write your in-text citations is to include it within your sentence instead of at the end. In this case, you would include the author's name within the sentence and put the page number in parentheses at the end of the sentence before the period. There are also differences for how to list authors depending on the amount of authors. If the material you are citing has 2 authors, you need to include both authors' last names and the word "and" in between them, and then include the page number. If the material you are citing has 3 or more authors, only list the first author's name, then include the words et al., period, page number. Et al. Is a Latin phrase that means "and others," and it replaces the other authors' names. The resource you are citing might not have an individual person listed as an author. If the source has a corporate author, use the name of the corporation and the page number in the citation. If there is no known author, use a shortened title of the work instead of an author name. Put the title of the work in quotation marks if it's a short work, such as an article, or italicize it if it's a longer work, such as a book, play, or movie, and provide a page number if available. Please note that your in-text citations must correspond to a citation in your works cited page at the end of your paper. The in-text citations provide a small amount of information about the resource, but the works cited page is where the full citations are listed, and those contain more details. For more details on creating in-text citations, you can refer to in-depth resources such as Purdue OWL, the online writing lab from Purdue University. This website is a useful tool to refer to when creating MLA citations. Remember that librarians are available to assist you during.
Okay, and Purdue OWL is actually one of the resources that we use quite frequently with NWTC. If you go to the library, a lot of the citing information actually comes from the Purdue OWL site. Excuse me. So, anybody have any questions? Okay. We are going to be trying to put some of this into practice here. Okay, so I'm going to close out of this. You guys will notice that there is this activity. Please make sure you can see it. If there's anybody who does not see this in Blackboard under that MLA help tab, let me know, because you guys all need access to it for what we're about to do. So what I would need you guys to do is to click on this download it somewhere. I actually already have it in that folder. So download it somewhere where you can have, get access to it. Then you're going to need to open it up. Okay. And what this is, we're just going to practice some in-text citations. I think there's seven questions here. Okay. So this is what I want to do. We're a small group. Okay. If we were in a face-to-face class, I'd have you guys like sit next to each other and work on it. Of course, now with COVID, even if we were face-to-face, I don't know if that would be a possibility. But I'm going to break you up into two groups. So it'll be a group of 3 and a group of 2. Here's what I want you guys to do. I want you to talk to each other. I would love it if you would turn your microphones on. You don't have to turn your cameras on, but turn your microphones on and talk to each other. Go over these questions one by one, okay? So there's 7 questions, okay? 7 examples of in-text citations, and every single one of them has some type of error in it, okay? You will notice, so here's our first example right here. Every single number shows you what the works cited citation looks like. So you know what source is actually being used and you have all that information, okay? What I want you guys to do is in your little groups, your pairs, I want you to look at these and try to figure out what is the flaw and how can I fix it, or how can we fix it? Take your best guess. I do not care if you get these wrong. We are going to be going over them, but I want you to try. Let me see. Can there be more than one flaw? I'm trying to remember now. Let me double check really quickly because I want to be able to answer that question for you. Okay. Had to turn my camera off because I'm looking for, if I can find it. Is this the one? Nope. And I'm too lazy to read through all of them. Okay. Off the top of my head, I am pretty sure, oh, that's why that wasn't working. I am pretty sure there is only one error per exercise, but let me just check. How can I word that? For the most part, there is one error, but you might have to do a couple of things to fix that error. So does the works cited count as an error? Oh, I see what you're getting at. Okay, so all of the works cited that are listed for those numbers, all of those works cited are correct. I realize they don't have the hanging indent with them. I think maybe a couple of them do. The works cited, they're all correct. So you won't find the error there. You'll only find the error with like the sentence or whatever that's underneath the number. Does that make sense? Okay, so the works cited on this sheet is correct. So there won't be an error there. For the most part, there's just one error in every single number, but it may take a little bit to fix it. You might have to rearrange some of the information. Okay, that's what I'm going to say. You might have to rearrange the information. Okay, so what I want you guys to do is I want everybody to go ahead and download that activity while I'm getting some breakout stuff set up. So take a moment, get it downloaded, make sure you can open it up, okay? And if for whatever reason you are not being able to open it up, let me know, please. Okay, take to the chat box as soon as you have it open and you're able to look at it. Just let me know. You can say got it or okay or whatever. I just want to make sure everybody is able to get to it. Hmm. Okay, let me just double check on this for one of your classmates. Yeah, I just want to make sure that we all have access to it before we do anything else. Groovy. Okay, so this is what I want you guys to do. There's two groups, I guess you could say, because we have such a small number. So Hunter, Richard, and Tatum, you guys are going to be together. And then Haley and Stephanie, you guys are together. So like I said, I'm going to put you guys in these breakout groups. I want everybody to turn their mic on if possible. I understand that sometimes you guys have a connection issue, but it'll make it much easier to go through this worksheet together if you can just like turn your mics on and take it one at a time and discuss what you think the error is and discuss how you think you can fix it. I mean, there really could be more than one option to fix things. Kind of think of how when we have like comma splices or run-ons, how there's more than one way that we can fix the error. The important thing is, can we recognize the error and can we figure out how to fix it? Okay. So I'm going to give you guys, let's do 12 minutes. Okay. We'll see how far you get in 12 minutes. If after 12 minutes you're like, oh, we only got 3 done, then we'll tack on a couple more minutes. But at about the 12-minute mark, maybe around the 10-minute mark, I'll pop into your groups and see how far you guys are. Okay? So does anybody have any questions on what they need to do with this worksheet? All right. Keep an eye on the clock in the breakout session. And as I said, in 10 minutes, I'll pop in and see if you guys need any more time or anything. Okay. All right. Well, let's get started then, okay? Okay, good. Everybody got in. Okay, so before I show you the answers, I want you to realize that there is potentially more than one way to fix the error. I guess what I really want you to look at is, hey, did we identify the error correctly? Okay. All right, so let me share, make sure that I have that open for you. All right, so these are the answers that the actual MLA organization has given us. So let's go through these. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so we can see it. Okay. All right. So for the first one, the biggest issue was that there wasn't an in-text citation at all. So what happened is our writer put in the author's name, he put in the page number, and he put in the title of the book. So that left us with nothing to put in parentheses. So be really careful when you are building your sentences. Make sure that you have something to put in an in-text citation, okay? So the choice that the option here was to take out on page 8 and then just put the page number in the parentheses. And that would be correct because we have our author's name here and the title of our work right here. Okay, do you guys have any questions on number 1? Okay. Well, I'm going to keep going. If you think of a question, go ahead and pop it in the chat box. Okay, so the second one, our source was an annotated edition of The Hobbit. Okay. And okay, so we have the publisher and everything. So the sentence here, the reason, or the error, I should say, that we need to identify is, yay, we put the page number. That's great. But what we needed to do was end up putting the title here, because you see how we have all the rest of the information in here. We've got Tolkien in here. We have annotated Hobbit. I mean, it has all of that in there. So we need to go ahead and put that shortened version of the title in there. Okay. And as I go through these answers, you'll see that a lot of times there's like a word in there that's underlined. That means that word is in italics. Okay. All right. I'm just going to keep going. Like I said, pop your answers in the chat box, okay? Or your answers, your questions. Okay. The third one is it's just a cover image on Time magazine. Okay. Here again, there was no in-text citation at all. And so we had to put something there. We've already mentioned Time magazine. Okay, we mentioned Time magazine and we described what the image looked like. So what we would end up doing is in our parentheses, we would literally just put cover image, okay, because that's it's at the beginning of our citation. And yes, it's kind of hard to tell, but they have that little squiggly to put the parentheses in between there. So then that way it would be period. So one of your classmates asked, why not the artist? Okay, well, I am assuming, okay, and I just have to assume because of what the information I have in front of me. I am assuming there was no artist listed. If the artist was listed, then yes, their name would actually be in the parentheses, okay? So yeah, I'm just going off of the information I have in front of me. Good question, though. All right, number 4. Number 4 is a little bit tricky because we have more than one source here. We've got the actual book, To Kill a Mockingbird, which is by Harper Lee, and then we have To Kill a Mockingbird, the movie. Okay, so we've got 2 different paragraphs here. We got one paragraph that talks about the novel and one paragraph that talks about the film. The format that we have right here, how it's that big, it's like, you know, it's a quote right here, but we call this a block quote. Okay, if it's 4 or more lines, this is how we would format it. We would like write the introduction into our sentence. We'd put a colon, and then we would put our long quotes right here. Notice that there's no quotation marks around it. That's one of those weird, tricky things that happens here. So we put a page number, but you'll notice that nowhere in here did they mention the author's name. And when we are trying to use in-text citations with MLA, the 2 things that we're supposed to put are the author's name and the page number if we have them. Okay? Okay, a question came through and I'm going to address it as soon. It's funny, a couple of you had the same question. Okay, I'm going to address that when we come to this paragraph right here. Okay, so this paragraph is talking about the movie. And it's talking about the dialogue and everything that was in there, okay? And here again, there was no citation. So we needed to put in a citation. And since we're talking about the movie, we would put just that abbreviated version of the title. Notice the underline, that means it would be in italics because that's what we do with movie titles. The other thing that I want to point out to you, when we use a block quote, for those long quotes in our papers, notice that the period actually is over on this side of the parentheses and not on the outside of it, okay? All right, so a couple of you asked a really good question about whether you would put a timestamp. So like if you're watching a movie, you'd be like, oh, that happened at 4 minutes, 20 seconds. MLA 8 does not require you to put a timestamp, okay? I'm thinking, I'd have to go look at it, so don't take my word for it. I think with APA, you are required to put the timestamp, but MLA 8 does not require you to do so, okay? Thank you for asking that, though. I didn't even think of mentioning that. Okay. So when I say that there's like more than one way to do it, if we wanted to, so let's look at this paragraph right here. One of the suggestions is to put Lee in our parentheses, so that way we'd have our author's name and our page number. Another way to fix it is we could say, in Lee's novel, To Kill a Mockingbird, then the page number would be correct there because we've mentioned our author up here. Okay, so that's what I mean by there's more than one way to fix it. It's just however you would like to fix it. Okay, let's look at number 5. Number 5 is what we call a white paper. Okay, it's like an informational document, and it's actually from the Modern Language Association's website. Okay, it's just this report right here, this major report. So here again, we have the publisher, the organization that created this document. We have a direct quote. We have a page number. That's great, but we need to make sure that we have the title, okay, an abbreviated version of the title somehow has to be listed either in our sentence or in our parentheses. And the correction that they chose was to put report within these parentheses. Now remember, with MLA, we wouldn't put any commas or anything in there. So it would literally say report space 5. Okay. We don't put any commas, anything like that in there. Okay. I'm going to move on to number 6. So number 6 is actually a tweet. Did you guys realize that you could use a tweet for a source? You could use a tweet. You can use a Facebook post. Obviously, those would be more for, what's the word I'm looking for? More for illustration than trying to use something as a good, viable, strong source, a credible source. Okay, so kind of keep that in mind. Okay, so the tweet that we're looking at, it's a tweet from Donald Trump. Okay, so this is Donald Trump's, or it used to be, his Twitter handle. Okay. Now, Twitter, you can only have, I think it's 120 characters. Okay. So, you would, in like your works cited citation, you would actually just put that whole tweet in there. Okay. Then you would mention Twitter because that's the publication. Put it in italics. You would mention the publication date and then try to actually include a direct link to that tweet. Okay. So in our paper, we have like a direct quote per se, because we say that President Trump has actually taken to calling North Korea no-ko. Okay. Which is great. We got all that in there, but we still need to have an in-text citation. So for this, what we would do, and I realize it might be kind of tricky because we said President Trump there, but the Twitter handle is actually what we would consider the author's name. So in our parentheses, we need to put at real Donald Trump, close up our parentheses and put the period in there. Okay. So yeah, like I said, you can use Twitter, you can use Facebook, but only for illustration. Don't try to use it as a credible source, okay? All right, and then let's look at this last one. So the error in this last one, when we look at it, we actually only have two authors. And if you remember from the video that we just watched, when you have the two authors, mention the two authors, okay? The only time we need to use at all is when we have more than 3 authors, okay? So to fix that, all we did is we mentioned both authors by their full names, okay? And then we have the page number after the direct quote. One thing that I want to make sure that all of you guys know, the very first time you mention your author or authors, please mention them by their full names. Okay, so the very first time, full name. Every time you mention them after within your paper, refer to them by their last name. Okay, never refer to them by their first name, because we are not on a first name basis. It's not professional to refer to our author by their first name. Okay. All right. That was kind of a lot. Do you guys have any questions beyond the ones that you asked? You guys asked excellent questions, by the way. Any more questions on maybe a different way that you fixed some of these errors and you just want to make sure that you did it correctly? Okay, if you have not done so, I would encourage you to make sure that you wrote down the correct answers and then use this activity sheet as a reference guide as you guys are writing. Okay, so does anybody need to see any of the numbers again? Tell me in the chat box. Okay. All right, well, I'm going to get rid of this on our screen. Okay, so I'm hoping that you guys are continuing to get more and more comfortable with the whole in-text citation. One of the biggest errors that I see on papers is that there is a source listed on the works cited page. I see a quote in your paper and there's no in-text citation, or you have something similar to, let me go back to this one right here. You have something very similar to what was listed here on number 1 of the activity sheet, where you list all of the information in the sentence and then just don't put a citation at the end. No matter what, you have to have a citation. So if you happen to have a sentence like number 1 where you've put the page number and you've put the author and you've put the title, take one of those pieces out and use that in your parentheses for your in-text citation, okay? So it's an easy mistake. You wouldn't be the first person that made that mistake. I just don't want you to commit what we call accidental plagiarism, okay? If I grade your papers and there's plagiarism, I won't grade it. I'll actually stop grading it. I won't give you a score. I will just contact you and say, I can't grade your paper. I need you to fix it because it's plagiarized. Okay? So kind of keep that in mind. Make sure you have your in-text citations and you have your sources on your works cited page. Okay? Super important. It's like annoyingly important, but it's important. Okay. I am looking at my notes to make sure that we go through everything that I want to go through. Okay. So let's kind of shift on just a little bit. I am watching my time here. I'll give you guys a break in just a little bit. I want to take us actually back into Blackboard. Would like to review some information with you guys. So if you guys recall, when we met last Wednesday, we watched a video to kind of help you start your textual analysis. And, it was a really, really great video explaining, what you needed to look for, how you could organize your textual analysis. So that was great. Now what I'm doing is we're going from the big picture and I'm looking at those small things that you guys need to really make your papers strong, okay? So I'm going to take us into the learning plans and sources. And I'm going to take us into Learning Plan 4. Learning Plan 4 is about all the essay parts, okay? There are parts. There are specific types of paragraphs, that are really, really important. So Learning Plan 4 is an awesome collection of resources. We're not going to get to all of them. Matter of fact, like this is one of my favorite videos. It's by the Schmoop people, and I love Schmoop. But is there anybody, take to the chat box, can anybody tell me, whether you can send it to me privately or to everybody, can anybody tell me the difference between a thesis statement and a topic sentence? Any ideas? Okay. The thesis statement not only grabs the attention of the reader, but it also tells your reader what the paper is about, right? So the thesis tells your reader, this is what my entire paper is about. Whereas a topic sentence, and every body paragraph should have a topic sentence, a topic sentence tells us what the paragraph is about. Okay? Topic sentence is at the beginning of every body paragraph. And it lets your reader know, hey, this paragraph is about this. Okay? If you are unsure, I would encourage you guys to come back to this video whenever you have time. I think it's like a 3-minute video. It's not very long at all. It's full of silliness. The Schmoop videos always are. But it takes a look at the difference between a thesis statement and a topic sentence. Okay? What I want to take you to is this video right here. And it talks about the types of paragraphs in an academic essay. Do you guys remember how long your textual analysis has to be? How long the final draft has to be? Tell me in the chat box. How many pages do you have to write? See if you guys remember. 15 pages? No. A third of that. Okay, 3 pages. It's 3 to 4 pages, okay? And it's 3 pages of writing plus your sources page, okay? So if you're writing MLA format, you should have a total of 4 pages. 3 pages of writing plus 1 source page or works cited page. So sometimes what happens is when we start writing, we just attack it and we just start putting everything down. And then we get what we think is everything down on our paper, and we realize we've only written 1.5 or 2 pages, and somehow we have to stretch that out, right? So I want to watch this video. Let's watch this video, then I'll let you guys go on a break before we jump into the next thing. But let's watch this video to look at how those paragraphs can work together and help you stretch that paper out because you know what each paragraph is supposed to do. It'll make sense, I promise. Let's go ahead and take a look at this video, okay? Again, this video is only a few minutes long. Let's go like this. I'm going to pause it. Let's see here. Oh, I hate it when it tells me the full screen is not available. If I can't go full screen, can you guys, is this big enough for you to see, or do you need me to open it up in a new window? Let me know in the chat box. Is this big enough? I wonder why it's not available. Okay. All right. So the general consensus is this is fine. So pay attention and we will go from there, okay?
This video will explain the types of paragraphs that you will use in an academic essay. It is rare to see a paragraph by itself. Paragraphs are normally grouped into longer structures like articles, essays, or reports. In these longer structures, specific paragraphs have specific specialized purposes or functions. Let's look at the academic essay, the most common type of academic writing. The introductory paragraph is sometimes viewed as a hook or grabber. In part, its function is to engage readers and make them want to continue reading. It also introduces the main ideas to be supported in the essay and should present the thesis or claim. In other words, the writer's position on a subject. The supporting paragraphs do just what their name suggests. They support the thesis. That is a critically important job. Without adequate support, the thesis, like a ripe apple hanging on a tree on a windy day, will fall to the ground. Support paragraphs focus on a specific topic or point of support and develop that point of support by discussing and presenting reasons, evidence, and examples that are designed to convince us that the thesis is, in fact, worth considering. Take time in developing your support paragraphs. They can make or break your essay. Use examples or evidence from credible sources to support and illustrate your points. Finally, we have the concluding paragraph. This is the writer's last chance to engage the reader. Typically, it will restate the thesis and the supporting points for the final time in a mini summary. The writer might want to bring things together at the end, maybe by stressing the importance or significance of your argument, by asking questions that keep your readers thinking, or by suggesting actions that they might take. You now know the types of paragraphs that you will find in an academic essay. When developing your ideas in written form, be aware of the specialized roles that your paragraphs play and ensure that they are doing what you want them to do. Thanks for watching.
Okay. All too often, what ends up happening is we'll have a really, really great, strong academic essay, and there won't be a concluding paragraph. It's like it just comes to an abrupt halt. Like, I don't know if you guys grew up with siblings who always thought it was funny to slam the door in your face. Maybe that was just in my household growing up. But to me, that's what a paper without a conclusion always feels like. Like, you just finished saying what you want to say. You just slammed the door in my face. You didn't give me a conclusion, okay? So one of you, when I was asking about the thesis statement, you had said that it's kind of like the hook. It's kind of connected to the hook in our introductory paragraph. And I'm going to show you guys a graphic organizer, not just yet, but in a little bit. So in that introductory paragraph, this is where, like, the first couple of sentences, this is your opportunity to really grab your reader's attention, okay? And you could mention like a real life example. Maybe you want to think of a hypothetical situation, whatever, but you mention something interesting so your reader goes, okay, yeah, I want to read more. Then you let that hook connect you to your thesis statement, which says, hey, reader, guess what? This is what my paper is about. So then we go to those supporting paragraphs, and each of those supporting paragraphs need to be discussing your thesis statement. Okay? Normally what I say is, when you guys are devising a thesis statement, try to think about, are there 3 to maybe even 5 points that you could discuss regarding the topic in your thesis statement. And then what you can do is all those points then are addressed separately in those supporting paragraphs, the body paragraphs, okay? So, and that's your opportunity then. This is where you get to put those direct quotes or the paraphrases, or maybe you found a really good statistic. Statistics, numbers get us, if we say, like 40% of all such and such are hurt doing this, that catches our attention. And that's where we get to put those, the evidence, the examples, all of that. So if you can think of, 4 or 5 even points, then that really helps you stretch out your paper, because okay, this paragraph will talk about this point, this paragraph, and that's how you can organize it. And then just make sure that each of those paragraphs has a topic sentence, okay? Tells your reader, hey, this is what my paragraph's about. And then, like I said, just don't forget your conclusion. The conclusion, think about it. It's the last impression to your paper. So you want to leave a good impression. You're going to restate that thesis statement. Do just a real brief summary of everything you've discussed in your paper. This is your last chance to tell your reader why whatever you're writing is important, okay? You can ask rhetorical questions. Sometimes asking those rhetorical questions makes your reader think about your topic after they've read your paper, okay? Or if it's an argumentative essay, you can suggest a course of action. This is what you think everybody should be doing. So, any questions on that? Any questions on thesis statements, topic sentences, organization? Okay. I'm reading some of your comments. In the house that I grew up in, it was actually my great grandmother's house. And we had a dining room and we had a kitchen, and it was separated by a wall, but there was a doorway, but it wasn't like it didn't have a doorknob on it. It was almost like, they call that what it's like a waiter's door, that it swings open, both ways. So you had to be really careful whether you were going to go into the kitchen or come out of the kitchen, because you might smack someone with the door. And the way our house was set up, again, it was a really, really old house. So the doors to all of the rooms would lead into a hallway. So you could actually run in a circle. And we got hurt so many times running in circles and smacking each other with the door. So don't smack us with the door. Make sure that you put a conclusion in your paper. I'm going to let you guys take a breather. Let's go get a break. Let's do, like a 12-minute break. And then we are going to discuss a couple more things and apply them to our textual analysis. Okay. So I'll get the timer going. No, I'll give you more than 5 minutes, right? All right. So I'll see you in 12 minutes and we'll discuss a little bit more then. All right. Okay. See you guys in just a bit. Okay. Seems like the general consensus is that all of you plan to use MLA formatting, which is great because we can just concentrate on that formatting. So we've gone over MLA formatting. We've gone over MLA in-text citations. We've looked at types of paragraphs, what those paragraphs do, how they can help us out. And we'll continue to discuss that as well. But what I want to do is take us back into Blackboard to review a couple of things. And then I'm going to have you, well, all of us actually, take to the discussion board to look at our textual analysis essay drafts. Remember what I said, you guys. I don't care if it's not a finished draft. I would love if you had more than one paragraph on your draft, but I want you to post what you have. So if you have not posted yet, please quickly sneak over there and post whatever you have to the textual analysis essay draft revision group discussion board Man, those titles are so long. Okay. All right, let's go back into Blackboard. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click on the assignments tab and take us into our textual analysis folder. Okay. All right. So if you guys remember when we met on Wednesday, we watched this video, great video as far as how to kind of attack textual analysis, essay formats. Like, what do we need to do? We even kind of abbreviated how to get started. You guys needed to choose 1 to 2 sources, or you could even do 3 if you wanted to, and start asking and answering questions about the text and about the author. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to load up the assignment details really quickly, just so we can kind of review and remind ourselves what we need to accomplish with the textual analysis essay. I'm going to take a really quick drink. Okay, sorry. All right, so remember, this is a 3 to 4 page essay. You guys need to choose 1, 2, or 3 of the sources that we've read. Okay, so I'm going to open that actually in another link. So for the textual analysis, I'm hoping you guys didn't go out and try to find some other sources. Uh-oh. Yeah, the sources that we have read, okay? You're supposed to look at these sources. Okay, so here's the deal. I'm looking at the chat box and everything. If by chance you did not use the articles that we've already, read during this class, you are going to need to incorporate our sources somehow. Sorry, I have a frog in my throat all of a sudden. So if you went and looked for another source, is there a way that you can connect that source or sources to one of these sources? So if let's say you went and looked for a couple of sources that happened to talk about language, okay? Can you tie them into at least one of the sources that we already have? That way you're not having to completely rewrite a paper. Does that make sense? So if you used 1 or 2 sources that you went and found all on your own that have to deal with language, try to add one of our sources into that textual analysis essay to tie it with what you've already discussed. And I'll be looking at the discussion boards as well, okay? So I can kind of give you some ideas of what you need to do. But yes, consider the pieces that we have read, okay? These are all of the sources that we have read, okay? These are the sources that you will be using for our papers. You don't have to go find other sources. I mean, you can, but you should only find sources to use in addition to the sources in our languages sources folder, okay? The idea is to really pick apart the sources, focusing on the author, focusing on the text, things like that. On the assignment details, I even have like a list of questions. Okay, try to go through those questions. As you answer some of those questions, it could help you devise a thesis statement. It could actually help you create kind of an outline for your paper. Okay. All right. So, sorry, I'm reading in the chat box, you guys. Okay. Let me type something in here really quickly. Okay, so here is what we are going to do. We're going to go to the discussion board. Okay. We're going to like scroll all the way down to where those revision groups are. Oh man, it's like so far down. Okay. Nope, I went too far. Okay. So, all right, you guys, see, this is why it's really important that you read through the instructions, the assignment details there, okay? Here's what we're going to do for right now. We are going to go to the revision group discussion board, okay? So because there was a misunderstanding, there might be a couple of the papers there that aren't based off of our sources, okay? For what we're going to do for the revision group, that's okay. Because for the revision group, what we're doing is we're going to go look at least 2 of our classmates' drafts that are posted, okay? We are going to try to identify a thesis statement. Okay, is that thesis statement right there in the beginning of the paper? Because, you know, or in that first paragraph is where we want to find that thesis statement. Do the body paragraphs have topic sentences to kind of let us know what the, you know, paragraph is about? Are the papers organized right? You know what I mean? Like, do they flow well? Or is it just kind of like cut and paste paragraphs all over? Okay. Look for any in-text citations. See, you know, now that we've done that exercise together, see if you can kind of look at those in-text citations and maybe check them to see if they're correct. All right. And then, as always, please offer any advice, anything that you saw, and feel free to compliment them on things that they've done well. Okay. So, as I said, some of these papers may not have the sources from our sources folder, okay? I'm going to participate in the discussion boards as well to see what we can do to try to connect them to the sources we have. But I want us to take some time to try to look over 2 classmates' drafts. Your responses to 2 classmates aren't due until midnight tonight, but I do like to take a little bit of time in class to kind of go through them together. That way, if you guys have any questions, you can ask them. So we're going to take about 25 minutes, okay? And in 25 minutes, get through what you can get through. It's okay if you don't get to 2 of your classmates. You can always go back to them later. But take some time, go over that list of things that I have there, and just try to address as many of those bulleted points there as possible. Does anybody have any questions on what you need to do for this discussion board? Okay, even if you do not have a draft on this board, I need you to still go and look through the classmates' drafts that are there to help them out, okay? All right, I'm setting a timer for myself because 25 minutes would be about what, 2:35? I'm really bad at math, so I'm always afraid to tell you the wrong number. But around 2:35, we're going to come back and do some discussing, okay? All right, go ahead, get to work. I will be taking part of the discussion boards as well, okay? So I'll check in with you in just a little bit. Pretty sure I got to everyone's draft that was on the discussion board. And then I was looking at that and then also addressing questions and stuff as we were going through. So if by chance you weren't able to respond to 2 of your classmates, just make sure you finish that by midnight tonight. I think you guys were all able to get to it. So any of your classmates who are watching this video after the fact are going to have to go in and participate in the discussion board. I need to remind you guys that all these revision groups, there's points to all these discussion boards. So the annotated bibliographies, the ones for all the essays, and you get points for posting your original draft, and then you get points for the feedback that you give your classmates. Okay, so I need you to participate in it. Like, I don't want to give you a 0 on a discussion board. That'd be terrible. Don't make me do that. I don't like zeros. I hate zeros. Don't make me put those in there. Okay. Okay. Any questions on this textual analysis? From what I see, you guys have the basic idea of the textual analysis, of like what you're supposed to be looking for. The bottom line is you are looking at the source. You are picking the source apart. You can pick the author apart as well. Feel free to, when you guys are looking at the source, go and look for information about the author. A lot of times we can click on their name, or sometimes there's like a little box over to the right or whatever that gives us a little bit of information, a little more information about our author. Because you can talk about our credibility, or not our credibility, the author's credibility, their experience, all of those things. And yeah, if all else fails, Google them. Just make sure if you get information from a page in Google, you do have to cite that source. So keep that in mind. Okay, I'm just looking through and making sure we got to that. Okay. So the one thing that I do want you guys to really, really focus on with these textual analysis essays is your thesis statements. I think I was able to identify all the thesis statements. I know there were a couple of you, like I offered just some suggestions just to make that thesis statement even stronger. But you need to make sure that thesis statement is really clear. And what it's doing, remember, is that thesis statement is telling the reader, hey, this is what I'm going to talk about, but without saying, hey, I'm going to talk about this. Okay, we want to be a little bit more creative than just going, psst, this paper is about. Try to avoid doing those, okay? I want to show you guys some resources that can help you out with this textual analysis. So give me a second. I'm going to take you back into Blackboard to show you where these resources are at. Okay, so again, I will say you guys always do a nice job on the discussion board and offering the feedback. Please make sure as you are continuing to work on the assignments that are in the discussion board that you do go and look at your peers' feedback. Okay. All right. Let me take us back into the assignments tab. All right. Okay, so we're going to go assignments and we're going to go back to the textual analysis essay folder. Because I do have a few more resources at the end here. Okay. I have this thesis statement help. So if you're not able to identify what a thesis statement is in your paper, you might need to look at what you've written, and maybe you still need to write a thesis statement for your paper. Like, what your paper's about, but maybe you just haven't drafted that thesis statement yet. So let's look at this thesis statement help, okay? Let's just take a peek at it together. So if you are struggling with your thesis statement, and this is something that we will refer back to because you have a couple more papers that you're going to be writing, okay? So just remember thesis statements, basically it's a summary sentence that includes your opinion or your ideas. Traditionally, it's the last sentence in your introductory paragraph. It doesn't have to be, but it usually is at least towards the end of that paragraph, because try to remember the video we went through, the video we just watched about the parts of an essay, like the paragraphs. Your introductory paragraph should start us off with a hook, something interesting, maybe a little bit of background on whatever it is you're going to talk about. You should be addressing that before you mention your thesis statement. Okay, so your thesis statement should not be the attention grabber. That should be something different. Your thesis statement should, after you've given us some background or shared an incident or something, your thesis statement should come after all of that. Okay, so kind of keep that in mind. So I would encourage you guys all to go back to your introductory paragraphs and make sure that you can locate that thesis statement, and that thesis statement is sitting where it needs to be sitting in your introductory paragraph. Okay. If at any point in time when I'm explaining some of this I confuse you, please take to the chat box and let me know, okay? So this is just a handout. This is not an assignment. This is just something that can help you if you get stuck, okay? So when you're thinking about your thesis statement, like I said, it's all of your main ideas in one summary sentence. Okay, so textual analysis, what you're doing is you're looking at the sources, but you're looking at specific parts of the sources. Okay, so maybe you are looking at the author's tone, the author's credibility, and the author's readability. Okay, so that could be your thesis statement. Now, one of your classmates asked an excellent question, which is, can a thesis statement be more than one sentence? Yes. Okay. What happens is let me do this here. I'm going to open a new document. When we're writing a thesis statement, sometimes we need almost like an introduction into the thesis statement, and sometimes after the thesis statement, we almost need what we call it a map. Basically, it's an essay map. So I'm going to totally BS my way through here. Okay, I don't have anything drafted, so work with me. So thinking of the textual analysis in mind, what did I say? We wanted to talk about the author's, what did I say? I said credibility. Okay. I said the author tone, I think, too, didn't I? Credibility and readability. I'm spelling that wrong. That does not look right whatsoever. Okay, that's what I thought. So in my textual analysis, I might be looking at a couple of different sources, which is great. So let's just pretend in this imaginary textual analysis that I'm writing, I'm looking at two sources. Maybe I'm looking at the first two sources. So what makes a word real and how you see color. Okay. So in order to do that, sometimes I kind of have to get some ideas down. So give me just a moment and then we'll discuss how a thesis statement can be more than one sentence. Okay. So, we'll go with that. Okay, so as far as can a thesis statement actually be more than one sentence? Yes, because let us look at the first sentence that I typed. So I typed, both sources provide great detail and examples regarding the creation and the ever-changing nature of language. Okay, so I'm referring to both of my sources. I don't necessarily have to refer to both of them in that sentence because in my imaginary paper, I've already mentioned them in the beginning part of my introductory paragraph, okay? So that first sentence is what, is that lead into the thesis statement, okay? The second sentence, I consider the full, like the really, really full thesis statement with the essay map in it. So in order to really understand, I should say sources, because I'm talking about two. In order to really understand the sources, it is helpful to take a look at the authors. Now notice I have plural authors, so that's why I have the apostrophe on the outside there. Look at the author's credibility, tone, and readability, okay? So the long and short of it is, yes, a thesis statement can be more than one sentence. But I would say in order to achieve that, make sure you have what we call an essay map, okay? An essay map is really this section of it right here. Okay, and this is why we call it an essay map, because it is telling your reader exactly the order of the points that you're going to discuss. So let me do this. I'm going to like outline it just so you can see how it would go. So, okay, so the first body paragraph is most likely going to talk about, okay, the credibility of both sources. The second paragraph most likely will address the tone, okay? And then you can probably see where this is going. Ability. Oh, got an extra in there. Ability. So that tells us what's going to happen. And then, of course, we end with our conclusion, okay? So an essay map is literally just telling your reader the order that your points are going to go into, okay? So if my thesis statement lists credibility, tone, and readability in that order, that's the order that I have to address them in my paper. I should not mix it up and all of a sudden go readability, credibility, tone. I don't want to do that. I want to keep it in that order, okay? And that's kind of the point of an essay map, okay? You wouldn't use Google Maps and look at the steps and go, I'm just going to go ahead and go to the third step before I go, over to that street just to see what happens. Okay. It's going to tell you recalculating, because that's not the order. That's not the way that you're supposed to go. Okay. Let me know if you have questions on what I just did there. Okay. So if I was looking at an outline, okay, I would make sure that I'd have my introductory paragraph where I introduce what it is I'm talking about, where I lead into my thesis statement, and then lead into these body paragraphs. Now, you're writing a 3 to 4 page paper, so you might need to add some other paragraphs. Maybe I need just a paragraph with some background information. Okay, just to kind of spread that out a little bit. Maybe one of these paragraphs ends up taking 2 paragraphs, okay? Especially if I'm going to compare and contrast 2 sources, I might actually take 2 paragraphs for credibility, 2 paragraphs for tone, and 2 paragraphs for readability, because I would talk about what makes a word real. I would talk about the credibility there, and then I would talk about how we see color, or how you see color in a separate paragraph. And I would just kind of go back and forth that way, okay? that's what I would do if I was doing a comparison contrast within my textual analysis. Okay. Any questions? I'm going to come back to the thesis statement paper. Ooh, let's see here. Okay. Okay. So again, if you are struggling with a thesis statement, I'm not a math fan. I think that's been well established. I don't like math. I don't like equations or anything. But in English, there are some equations that we can use. And this is one of those instances, okay? So if you're really, really having a hard time, look at these fill in the blank equations, okay? So maybe I would say, in what makes a word real and how you see color, the authors illustrate that. What do they illustrate? What do they do? What are they talking about? What do they use? Okay. Or in what makes a word real, the author uses emotion to, and then try to think of 3 different things that the author uses emotion, or the author uses examples to whatever. So you can kind of use, those fill in the blanks to help you. But initially, before you attack it, you have to ask yourself, how does the author or authors convey their message? What do they do? What do they use? Okay. In what makes a word real, we have a TED Talk. So the author conveys her message not only by talking to us, she shares examples. I believe she shows some slides to us. She injects humor. Those are all things that you can look at. And then this just kind of, it goes through things to consider and how to tell a strong thesis from a weak one. So keep in mind, a strong thesis takes some sort of stand, like it is an actual statement. And a strong thesis is expressing that main idea. Okay, it's specific. So I would encourage you, go back to the discussion board, look for some of my comments on, like I said, I don't think I mentioned, no, I think I addressed the thesis statement on everybody's that was on the discussion board. So go back and look for that information and see what you need to do to make that thesis statement stronger. Okay. So this was just right here in the textual analysis essay folder. Okay. Let me take you through the other 2 sources. Maybe I will just take you through the essay structure, okay? And then we're going to go over what you guys need to do for homework, and that's it. So, what I did with my pretend thesis statement, okay, about, I don't even know where it is anymore, all right. What I did with my thesis statement when I broke that down and we were talking about the readability and the credibility and all of that, I used, oops, I don't want to annotate. I used this idea for just that basic outline. I talked about, the thesis statement. The general breakdown for your paper would have, paragraph 1 being your introduction with your thesis, and then you would have your body paragraphs, and then you would have your conclusion. This is a really good resource. It takes you through how you would apply your thesis statement into each one of these body paragraphs, okay? So if you are struggling to organize your paper and get the ideas out there, I would highly suggest that you go to this resource that is there in the textual analysis assignment folder, okay? Okay, because you guys are still working on your textual analysis, I am not going to address these last 2 in this folder, but we will talk about this graphic organizer when we get together on Wednesday, okay? The final draft of your textual analysis is actually due, let me see, midnight on the 26th. So you still have a little bit of time, okay? That doesn't mean I want you to like slack off or anything, but you still have some time to work on it. So let's look at what you guys need to do, okay? Let's look at our to-do lists. I think I have them all updated in here. So today, by midnight, oh, wrong class day. Okay. By midnight tonight, you need to finish up your textual analysis revision group. So if you didn't get to both individuals, you need to take care of that. You need to make sure that you submit the final draft of your annotated bibliography source 2. Okay? You need to go to that assignment folder and submit your source 2. Okay? Now, the other thing that needs to be done by midnight tonight is the mechanics discussion board. Let's go to that discussion board really quickly. So, you got to scroll down to look for that mechanics thing. Okay. Remember this, you were doing an extension of the story that you already wrote, or you had to write a whole nother one. And the idea was that you were supposed to use an example of capitalization, numbers, and abbreviation. Okay, and obviously make sure you do it correctly. So for this discussion board, what you guys need to do is you need to go and go read your classmates' stories that they wrote. I already know I want to read Rude Cats and Werewolf in My Treehouse. So you're going to go and you're going to look at their stories, and I want you to add one sentence that uses either capitalization, numbers, or abbreviation. Okay, so you're just going to add one sentence to 2 of your classmates' stories, making sure that you use either an example of capitalization, numbers, or abbreviation. Okay? Any questions on what you need to do with the discussion board? Okay, so just make sure you respond to 2 classmates by midnight tonight. All right? Now, what do you need to do before we meet on Wednesday? Before we meet on Wednesday, you need to draft your annotated bibliography source 3 annotation, okay? And you need to submit it on the source 3 revision group on the discussion board. Okay, so get your draft there. For the source 3, choose either in an absolute state or Mr. Rogers. Now, I will tell you this because I see this every single semester that I use these sources. Please note the correct way to spell Mr. Rogers' name, okay? I think because of Aaron Rodgers, we mess it up, but Mr. Rogers, as you spell out Mr., and Rogers is spelled R-O-G-E-R-S, okay? Like seriously, it happens every semester. So if you did it, don't worry about it. Just go back and fix it. So make sure your draft is posted to the discussion board before we start class on Wednesday. And then if you just want to look ahead, we're going to be working on that annotated bibliography 3 revision group. And we are going to continue to work on that textual analysis. Okay? So make sure that don't give up on me, okay? You still need to continue to work on that textual analysis. All right. So if you guys don't have any questions for me, going to do what I always do and give you the rest of the time to work. Look around. Feel free to leave if you don't have any questions. If you do have questions, I'm going to hang out here to address anything you need me to, okay? So if you don't have any questions, get to work, and I'll see you on Wednesday, okay?
Thank you.
Have a great day, guys.
You too.